In this space, the voices of women will not only be heard, they will be honored, studied, and woven into the tapestry of our collective progress as women. As the proverb goes, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a line. The African philosophers also remind us that kopano ke matla. They further remind us that izandla ziyagezana. This collaboration is a testament to the strength found in unity. WDB Trust contribution is not a standalone act. It is a seed planted in fertile soil, destined to yield a harvest of transformation. We at the Trust recognize that the WCDI, the Women-Centered Development Institute, is not a ring-fenced initiative, but a vital organ within the body of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center. Our support is therefore a commitment to the whole, not just a part. Another proverb teaches us that rain does not fall on one roof alone. The impact of this initiative will be felt far and wide across sectors, across generations, and across borders. WDB Trust believes that catalytic donors, like the ones that were on stage, like the ones that have been part of this process, play a unique and powerful role in igniting momentum. By taking calculated risks and offering early support, they become the spark that lights the fire. Catalytic funding is not just about giving, it is about believing, it is about daring to invest in a potential before it becomes proof. It is about unlocking doors for others to walk through. We chose to be part of those, to ensure that we can be part of the fire igniters. We believe our contribution will serve as a beacon, encouraging others to join hands, to invest, and to co-create a future where women's stories, struggles, and successes are central to the African narrative. As they say, even the best cooking pot will not produce food without ingredients. Without collaboration, commitment, and courage, vision remains dormant. Today, as the WDB Trust, we bring to the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the Thabo Mbeki Center our ingredients to the table so that the pot may be able to produce the necessary food. We are confident that this collaboration will echo across generations, shaping scholarship, shaping policy and practice in ways that honor the dignity and agency of the African people, and in particular, the African women. As I draw to a close, I'm reminded of a Sepedi idiom that says, "Mpiri oti hauli," which means a single bracelet does not jingle. And in that spirit, WDB Trust proudly clasps its bracelet on the wrist of Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center. We join the growing ensemble, each bracelet a note, each contribution a chord, and in a symphony of unity, purpose, and transformation, we shall make the bracelets jingle. Together, President, Mrs. Mbeki, together, these bracelets form a resonant melody of voices, of institutions, and hearts in harmony building something enduring and profound. Let the orchestra pray. Together we rise, together we build, together we transform. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria, for the wonderful, wonderful words. You said many important things, but there's one in particular that stood out for me. At least that's going to help me make another case. That Maria spoke about a single bracelet doesn't make a noise, which was important. And then she said that there's a growing ensemble of bracelets. The importance of that word growing is that it's present continuous. So it must keep growing. And so we require more bracelets from all of you. And so those of you who've given us one bracelet already, we need a second one so that the noise is louder. If you've given us 3 bracelets, we need 4 bracelets. And so, but thank you so much, Mary. We really appreciate it. We now invite the representative of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Ms. Thembi Malawo, to come join us on stage. For us, it was really important in this journey that the national government joins us as well. And equally, they've also been one of the early partners that have put a bracelet on our arms as a foundation. Indeed, it's been more than one bracelet. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Lukhanyo. Let me take this opportunity to greet my former president and my mother, Mzanele, and greet all the delegates and all the invited guests and say good afternoon. I am Thembi Malawo from the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. And I think Nanam forgot one thing. I'm also the 36 project manager. It is a great pleasure and honor to be with you on this auspicious day for the ground blessing ceremony for the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center. And I also find it very difficult to be reminded that it's a center. This noble initiative to establish the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center comes at a critical time when South Africa and perhaps the continent at large is encouraged to promote the culture of reading and to develop strategies for overcoming the lack of reading crisis. It is believed that the initiative of the establishment of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center that the Thabo Mbeki Foundation is championing will contribute to the need to reverse the failure by the most African countries to archive documents of their leaders, which has consequently led to foreign countries, especially former colonial powers, preserving such documents. While it might have been helpful on one hand, this situation has potential negative implications on the authenticity of the historical documents for future generations, as they have to learn their own history through the lens of others. Therefore, South Africa, on behalf of the African continent, is proud that the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center project will be a first of its kind in the continent and consistent with the call of the United Nations Organization, UNESCO, for Africans to write their own story. To paraphrase the former president, the patron of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center, in one of his interviews on an Irish television, you have to read books so that your course of action to solve problems, particularly as an African leader, is informed by a deep understanding and keen insight into the objective reality of the situation you are addressing. Close quote. The South African Department of Sport, Arts and Culture in implementing its mandate and inspired by the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the African Agenda 2063, as well as the National Development Plan, has heeded the call to promote access to information and has facilitated and hosted very important engagements involving other ministers responsible for libraries and related institutions on the continent. And therefore, premised on this strategic background, the South African Department of Sport, Arts and Culture forged this partnership with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation on the establishment of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center project. This partnership was informed by the need to collaborate in the following areas: promoting the development and promotion of local content in African libraries as a critical component of African Renaissance and Pan-Africanism, encouraging the formation of institutional networks and partnerships between libraries nationally, regionally, and across the continent for the exchange of knowledge and experience. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture is particularly impressed by the solid due diligence that the Thabo Mbeki Foundation has afforded the project, culminating in several international study tours and benchmarking expeditions to countries that have implemented similar projects to learn about institutional arrangements as well as financial models in order to inform the process of determining an appropriate model to recommend for the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center. This step is very important given the various sustainability challenges that are faced by similar institutions in the country. It is therefore no surprise that the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center has been conceptualized as an African center of excellence in learning, research, and discourse for the transformation of Africa, and aims to connect to similar centers across the globe, whose aim is to cherish and to promote the African Renaissance and unity. As South Africa, we pride ourselves that the outstanding African architectural concept of this prestigious institution and knowledge hub on our continent is associated with and championed by the winner of such a globally prominent award. I wish to inform South Africans, the continent, as well as the world, that the vision for the partnership and collaboration between the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture on the establishment of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center was unreservedly supported by the former Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Minister Nathi Mthethwa, who recently passed away. The late former minister was very passionate about African Renaissance and Pan-Africanism. He was a strong advocate for these ideals, recognizing the importance of African cultural heritage and the need for Africans to take ownership of their own development and destiny. He has worked to promote African arts, culture, and history, and supported various initiatives aimed at promoting African knowledge, unity, solidarity, and cooperation. And I want to then say, may his soul rest in peace. With these few words, the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture commends the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and its partners, nationally and internationally, for tirelessly working collectively to promote the ideals of African Renaissance and Pan-Africanism. Your dedication and commitment to these noble causes are truly inspiring and deserve to be recognized for uniting Africans and promoting regional integration, economic development, and cultural exchange. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Tembi, for your remarks, and you're quite correct. The CEO was reminding me earlier in the week of the first meeting here at the foundation in Minister Mthethwa's capacity as Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, when he came to the foundation, and they gave him a long presentation on the center, and he made a commitment that the department would make a donation. And the department indeed followed through on that. So really, thank you so much for reminding us of that. We are almost at the tail end of the quote-unquote boring part. The more fun stuff are next door. I can see some slight fidgeting. I promise you we're almost at the end. If you can please bear with us just for a few more minutes. Mayor, I'm about to call you up, Mayor. But I should say something before I bring you up, Mayor. That it's undeniable from all of us, because those of us who live in Johannesburg, that we continue to face challenges here. But equally, as Duncan was saying, there is plenty of potential here in the city. And despite all the difficulties, despite all the frustrations, we all choose to stay in the city, Mayor. And we choose to have hope, we choose to invest, we choose to build together. I say this because this center theoretically could be anywhere in the world. But we believe that this city, Johannesburg, is an important city for all it's about. And we've decided to remain here and decided to break ground here today with you here today, Mayor. And so, Mayor, before I call you up, in fact, as I call you up, Mayor, I wanted to express extreme gratitude to yourself, Mayor. Nanama forgot an important thing in her speech. We had many problems in trying to finalize many parts of this project. I remember there was a that was made to you, Mayor, and you ensured that our boardroom had 30 people in that boardroom. We sat for 2 hours. We discussed many of these challenges. And one of the things Joe said in that meeting was that the idea for him that government officials are not effective, are not efficient, are not good was dispelled in that same meeting. And since that meeting and beyond that, we've had a really wonderful time working with the city. And I'm saying that despite all the challenges that we continue to have, we still have hope, because we've seen the quality of people who work in the city, and we know that they're able to get things right, man.
This morning, before I came here, I had a meeting with property owners who are in the CBD of Johannesburg.
Well, Paul, we were told that there was a slight delay in Johannesburg on that SAA, South African Airways aircraft that is bringing the family and the remains of former Ambassador Nkosinathi Mthethwa to South Africa and to the province of KwaZulu-Natal. They have landed at Tambo International Airport through Air France, and they are coming to the province of KwaZulu-Natal through the SAA aircraft that is bringing them here. Then ultimately, when they land at this King Shaka International Airport, the remains of Ambassador Nkosinathi Mthethwa will then be brought here to the statue of King Shaka. As we remember the Zulu history, King Shaka was raised by the Mthethwa family, which meaning that King Shaka was the orchestrator of the Zulu nation, and he was.
We will work towards making sure that there's constant provision of water in the city. Let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, the chairperson and the board, acknowledge President Thabo Mbeki, Mezanele Mbeki, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Fikile Mbalula. But as I came in, I said, oh, Honale Mepam, Kikopamu acknowledge her because she was not on my speech. Mepam, Kau Dumedis. Kidumedise Lemme Speaker of Parliament, Togo Titiza, Lemme Bridget Mabandla, Kalidumedisa Bomme. Leskan Luansa Dumedisa Bomme Fela, Ketwala Wakemme, Lemme Piecha, Kalidumedisa. And of course, distinguished guests, members of the media, and fellow citizens and residents of Johannesburg. It is a profound honor to stand here today on behalf of the city of Johannesburg to mark this historic milestone, the official groundbreaking of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center. It is most fitting that the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center should lay its foundations here in Johannesburg. May I say the city of gold. The city's very soul was forged in the aspirations and labor of people from every corner of our continent. From its inception, Johannesburg has been a Pan-African city, a vibrant tapestry of cultures and a testament to the continent's collective spirit. This center, therefore, is not just located in Johannesburg. It truly belongs here in the heart of a city that embodies the diversity and dynamism of Africa. The city of Johannesburg is not merely a proud host. However, we are a committed partner in this noble endeavor. There is Ndlozi, I didn't see him. So Ndlozi, during the birthday of President Thabo Mbeki, he stands up and says, hey, when we see the mayor of Johannesburg, let's just greet him. The man has so much problems. Just say hello. Hello, Mr. Ndlozi. I appreciate your presence, my friend. I'm getting there. It's tough, though. Our commitment is steadfast because we believe in the vision of this president, The city of Johannesburg is proud to partner with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation to bring this vision to life. We believe that by understanding our past, embracing our culture, and celebrating our achievements, Africans can shape a present that is both meaningful and progressive. The Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center is a landmark investment in preserving our rich heritage and shaping our future. It will stand as a beacon of intellectual leadership and a vital new destination that enhances Johannesburg's stature as a global city, attracting scholars, leaders, and visitors from around the world. This groundbreaking ceremony serves as a call to action. We invite partners from across society, the private and public sectors, academia and civil society, to join the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the city in building this continental treasure. Let us all be inspired to contribute to this transformational project. In conclusion, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to President Mbeki and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation on reaching this monumental stage. The city of Johannesburg is immensely proud to be the home of a center that will carry forward the ideals of the African Renaissance for generations to come. We look forward to the day we gather here again to open the doors of learning, culture, and heritage and legacy. Let us work together to build a legacy that will last for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the reassurances that you've given us. Thank you very much, Mayor. I promised you, distinguished guests, to list the partners that have journeyed with us thus far. There are a few that I won't mention. They had asked not to be mentioned, but I'll read as many of them as possible. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, Anglo-American, Muthipe Foundation, Barlow World, Build Africa Foundation, Sibanye Stillwater, Exaro, Cisco, BMW South Africa, Total Energies, and there's several other individuals. I didn't get permission, so let me not read them out. But there are individuals as well who've also donated as well. Those are the people that have taken us from 2016 to date. Please give them a big round of applause. I'm hopeful that the several of you are in this room that we've been asking for money for the last number of years are inspired to go over the line now that we are seeing we're at the stage. We are very hopeful that we will reach our deadline of building this presidential center in the timeline set by Nanama and the team. And the only way to do that is if you've got the kind of support that we require from yourselves, but also importantly, if you are the kind of ambassadors who are able to go knock on doors on our behalf. Our office is very small. We can't get to all the boardrooms you're in. There are places that you're able to go that we are unable to go. So thank you very much for your continued support. Honored guests, the groundbreaking of this center could not be more timely. It comes at a moment when the world needs to hear Africa's story told in its own voice from our own perspective. Today's groundbreaking is a milestone that fulfills the dreams and aspirations of many Africans, across many generations, and honors all of those whose shoulders we stand on at this point. We must call upon the courage of those who journeyed long before us, long before many of us were born. It's their stories and others that we must tell. This is the embodiment of a life dedicated to the service of Africa and humanity. It is a physical manifestation of the African Renaissance. It is therefore my singular honor to invite the patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, President Thabo Mbeki, to give a few remarks, not long, just a few remarks, Mr. President.
Thanks a lot, Lucanio. A few remarks. I was just asking him, how many minutes is a few remarks? He did not explain. Maybe I think about 22, 23 years ago, we paid a state visit to Mali. At that time, the president of Mali was a very good gentleman, Alpha Omar Konare. And so before we left, President Konare sent a number of messages and said, please include the Minister of Sports in your delegation. We didn't understand why, but he insisted on it. Include the Minister of Sports in your delegation, which we did. It was Ngonde Balfo at the time. So we went to Mali, and then we sit in this bilateral meeting between the two delegations. And President Konare says, now, President Mbeki, you know, this was around November of that year. And he says, you know, in January, 2 months' time, Mali is hosting this Africa Cup of Nations. So I said, yes, President, I know that. And then he says, we've built the stadia ready. No problem. Yes, President. Now there's a problem. One of the problems is that Mali does not have enough telephone lines. So by the time the tournament takes place in 2 months' time, there must be enough telephone lines, because the numbers of people are going to come from the whole continent and the world for this cup. Yes, President. And then we've got buses to carry the players from wherever they go. But we don't have the private cars, the sedans, to carry the officials. Yes, President. And then the health infrastructure. He says the health infrastructure of Mali cannot cope with the numbers of people who will come, including attending to such injuries as players are playing. Now, he says, now you, he's saying, pointing at me, he says, now you are the one who's been talking about an African Renaissance. Now, you cannot have an Africa, a Renaissance Africa, which can't host a soccer tournament. Because this soccer tournament is going to need the sedans, it's going to need the telephone lines, and it's going to need a health process. And it's your job. President, no, it's your responsibility. And it was insisted on it. So we had to put in all of that other infrastructure. And in the Soccer Cup, Africa Soccer Cup, the 2023, I think it was, took place successfully. The reason I'm telling that story it was the attitude of let me tell another part of the story about Mali. So we visit Timbuktu because we're very interested to see the Ahmed Baba Library, which has got all of this literature from that old university in Timbuktu. So we went there. And the Ahmed Baba Library was one room, a long room. And there's tables in the middle, shelves. So you had the manuscripts on these shelves, manuscripts on the table. These are 1,000 years old, 800 years old, and it's called the Ahmed Baba Library. We had an SABC cameraman who was carrying his camera and as we were walking around, and then he puts the camera down. And he comes up to me and says, President, you must do something. So I said, do what? He said, but President, you can't, this is Ahmed Baba Live, you can't, you must do something. And then he picks up his camera. So when we went back to Bamako, I said to President Konari, no, this is what our cameraman said. We have to do something about that library. And then he says, you know that Mali is poor. I said, of course, President, I know that. So let's reach an agreement. I commit myself to supply the water, clean water, to people living in the villages of Mali. Because we are poor, they need that. You take responsibility for the library. So that was our deal. So those are two things we did. We made sure that the Soccer World Cup succeeds, the Africa Cup, and we built the library at Timbuktu. I'm really telling that story to say something about the attitude of the rest of the continent towards this country. Because President Konare was not asking this, he was not really asking. He was telling us what to do. That's your responsibility as South Africa to make sure that we succeed with regard to all of these things. I'm saying that because we see that phenomenon today. This library center, Lukai, as I'm sure all of us have known this by now, that the library has already got Kwame Nkrumah's archive. That archive should have gone to London. But people from Ghana intervened and said, no, you can't take Kwame Nkrumah's material to England. It must stay on Africa. And then they came to tell us that there is this thing, and can we talk to the people who were looking after that archive to see whether it can come here. We talked to them, and they readily said, if it's you asking for it, here it is. President Kaunda's children came to us and said, we as a family are saying the Kaunda archive belongs here. John Garang, who was leader of the SPLM in South Sudan, the people who were holding his archive contacted the foundation, said they can come and collect John Garang's. The rest of the continent is treating this library as their property. They own it. It's the same with Julius Nyerere, doing access to Julius Nyerere's material and so on. Again, it's the same attitude. The rest of the continent says this is common possession of ours as Africans. So I'm very, very glad indeed that today we're meeting as we're doing to do this sword turning. Because I think together we're making a statement about the future of our continent. And it's a very good statement and really very, very inspiring. You know, when Comrade Mayor, never mind Johannesburg, they just look at South Africa. the troubles we're in this country. But once you forget about these troubles of the continent, of the country and city and all that, and think about this, you forget all these troubles. Because here is something that is positive, that we as South Africans are doing, we, the rest of the continent, are doing about the future of our continent, which also needs a lot of thinking. We're going to Mali. The government of Mali have said, can you come? Because they want to say thank you for what we did. So we're going to Mali. We're going to Burkina Faso because Thomas Sankara, when was killed, was murdered there many years ago. And the current government has set up a monument to Thomas Sankara and are trying to rebuild Burkina Faso in terms of that, inspired by the thinking of Sankara. And they invited us to come to that ceremony. So a delegation led by Max Bokwana went there because the Burkinabe are saying, please come, let's sit together to discuss what do we do about Burkina Faso. We are currently discussing Madagascar. I think you'd have seen a little bit on the media. There's a lot of commotion in Madagascar. And again, so the people from Madagascar said, can't you see there's something going wrong and you are doing nothing? So we'll do something about Madagascar. And all I'm trying to say is really thank you very much indeed for coming and for making this commitment. We should never, ever forget our responsibility towards the rest of the continent. And the rest of the continent insists. They don't ask as we are requesting you. No, this is your responsibility. I think it's a great honor that the African continent plays that kind of tribute to us as South Africans. But thanks a lot. I think, Lucanio, that those are a few words. But thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Those were indeed a few words. Thank you for those words. Thank you for your vision. And thank you for your unwavering belief in the promise of the continent. Another round of applause, please. And now to offer the formal vote of thanks, which means we're at the end of this part. And so to offer the formal vote of thanks, I'd like to call upon my Chief Enabling Officer of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Mr. Max Bokwana.
Friends, ladies and gentlemen, I have to apologize to Soviet Lekhanyane, who is chairing the Portfolio Committee on Police, that I've taken you away from television, from watching that spectacle. So and thanks for choosing to be here than to be in front of your television. But as I was coming along, Dr. Bam, those of us that come from those rural areas of the Eastern Cape, we didn't know this concept university. All what we knew was Fort Hare. So if you say, no, that Fort Hare of Free State, or you say that Fort Hare of Transkei, because Fort Hare meant a particular thing to us. And I think when I see Fort Hare burning, it's doing exactly the opposite of what we are trying to do. There has to be a way that we speak to our children. There has to be a way that we teach our children to honor heritage and must understand that that's a heritage that comes from generations before them. And it's a heritage that belongs to future generations, as Abogogo was saying earlier on. And I think we need, as a nation, to say, Fort Hare is an educational shrine of this continent. And it can't be treated the way it is being treated. And we can't keep quiet about that. Those are our children. And children don't behave like that. I think, Lucanio, we have succeeded in something. The people that were speaking here, I can feel those 350 presentations. And I wanted to say maybe Duncan, when he's on holiday, he can moonlight with us here to go and do these presentations. Because he does this presentation about this library better than we can imagine. And I didn't know that Ria, I thought Ria is a general, but I didn't know that she can do what she has done today. But really, we as a foundation are very glad that we could today reach this milestone. The conceptualization of the Thabo Mbeki Presidential Center, which follows the establishment of the foundation on the 11th of October 2010, exactly 15 years ago. We convened at UNISA on the 16th of September 2014 to answer exactly the same question that Dr. Mapai raised, which is attributed to Reverend Diosoga, where he spoke about the need for the container that will be the repository of our past knowledge and heritage. This point at that meeting was repeated by Professor Mongane Serote when he says that we must define a space and a container, which will for the first time define in an undistorted manner what an African is. At that point, Mbambo Tata echoed President Mbeki's sentiment that this container will not be about President Mbeki's life, legacy, and works, but will use his name as a peg to hold other materials of other political, economic, and cultural leaders who inspire our continent and its people to achieve their potential. More importantly, this will be a living library and museum that grows, that the one that is not limited to when President Mbeki's term of office ended, or as an active citizen. But it will continue to explore the ideas around the African Renaissance, around African prosperity, and promoting the values and themes of knowledge, peace, and prosperity. I'm glad that amongst those that gathered 10 years ago, when we met at UNISA, to birth this very idea for which today we are breaking and blessing ground. Dr. Brigalia Bam was there. Ms. Daniel Mbeki was the co-convener. Ambassador Bridget Mabandla was an expert presenter. Dr. Bushlemba Mpotata was our host. Uncle Mongane Serote was the link between our past and the future. The Speaker of Parliament, Togo Didiza, was representing this foundation. So was Dr. Kobela, who I will say, towards his retirement in Free State, the President is going to retire with us here. He must come back. But we will also continue to honor the chair of that colloquium, the insurgent ambassador Ziz Pahad and Mamlindi Mabuza, who until the time they departed were convinced about the correctness of their decision. And today, it's a testimony to the correctness of that decision. As the Thabo Mbeki Foundation management, we did not tamper with the idea that they put on the table. We listened, we reflected, and were in fact inspired to turn that idea into a practical reality. From imagining President Mbeki's archives and papers hidden somewhere at the 4th floor of UNISA Library, away from the clattering masses, or as a small resources center at number 5 North Avenue, accessible only to the elite, or at West, hidden at Mrs. Mbeki's garage, to be accessed by only those that could relate to the Mbekis. We turn all of this to an open, accessible space of inspiration, an accessible space of reflection and meditation, knowledge and dialogue, a truly African Renaissance precinct. As Lucanio has done, we wish to thank many who had journeyed with us in this remarkable, ambitious project for the support that they have provided in kind, in cash, in networks, in encouragement, and even inquiry, questioning why we are doing certain things the way we are doing. All of those questions made us to make further improvements. We pay tribute, indeed, as Tembi was saying. I wasn't sure why Minister Mtwetwa came to our office. I think he was also not sure. But I said to him, but Minister, I'm busy with an idea here. And I don't even have a cent to pay people to do this. So within 7 minutes, we agreed. He said, how much? I said, so much. And he said, it's okay. And I really nearly beaten myself up because I could have quadrupled So that gave us the opportunity to gather as many of these professionals that Nanama was talking about. One day we will explain how we ended up with the Ajayan Associate team. It's a remarkable journey. But Secretary General, they understood that what we were about is our collective political, economic, and cultural heritage. To this end, SG, I insisted with Langa in your office that with you later, we must have an honest discussion about the archives of the liberation movements in the frontline states, much of which is located at Michigan State University. And the good thing about that Michigan State University, the head of the archives, is a fellow from Zimbabwe that used to be taught by Mbambotata that's here. And when I met with him, and he said it's injustice that all our stories are told in America. So part of the responsibility of this library is the repatriation in artifacts, in archives, in knowledge systems, in inventions that must come back to this continent. And this container will take that responsibility. It is also maybe, just maybe, the difficulties our country and our region faces is this foolish idea of jumping off the shoulders of our giant leaders, jumping off the shoulders of our forebears, and thought we can walk on our own. And we continue to walk as dwarfs that cannot see ahead. Hence, this library will also be that space of healing, and healing our attitudes towards our ancestry, and dealing correctly about what will our grandchildren say about us. The reason, Sis Nolita, we asked you to participate in this event today, it's not innocent. It's twofold. You represent a very, very important industry in this continent. The political economy of this continent has been shaped by the mining industry. And therefore, part of what we are trying to do here is to collect the archives of the mining industry. Because the story of the political progress in our continent, we cannot be told in full without telling the story of the mining. The good, the bad, and the ugly of that story. We hope so, therefore, that Sis Nolita and I saw Tabisile here from Sibanye Stillwater and the chairperson of Sibanye, Dr. Mapai. Me and Sis Bridget Mutsepe, we are planning something. And really, we need to sit in one room and have a truthful and honest conversations about why natural resources continue to be a curse in our continent and a blessing anywhere else in the world. And I think we must confront that conversation. And that's the dialogue, Sis Nolita, I would like us to convene. And we convene it not for South Africa, but for the rest of the continent. Ambassador Sangu is here. We traveled with his team to Guinea-Conakry. Guinea-Conakry is a country totally destroyed. Despite the amounts of gold in Guinea-Conakry, despite it being the leader in the production of bauxite. When I asked a young chap, SG, who was driving a taxi, what do we do to solve the problems of Guinea-Conakry? He said, my suggestion is that let's take all of the children that are 11 years old, move them out of Guinea, and bomb that place so that anybody and everybody that's there is dead. And 7 years later, bring back these children to rebuild the country. But I'm talking about the country that has got so much natural resources. And that story goes on with the Congo and many, many other places. I think we need to confront that. And I think this foundation and this library, if it collects all of these archives, we need to imagine something better. Secondly, Duncan, we were very impressed by the fact that without a paper, without a design, without a piece of land, just with an idea, you did what you did to us. To support us just by way of faith, by way of ensuring or indicating the confidence that you had with us. But more importantly, Sis Nolita, you didn't impose to us things that I knew as I worked for the NGOs, like having to report to Ford Foundation. What did you do with this invoice and that invoice and that invoice? And you allowed us to develop our own idea and do this thing the way we see fit. You know what that did? That gave us confidence and emboldened us to go to other entities because we had a precedent. We confronted Sibanye exactly in the same way. We confronted Exaro, Anglo Gold Ashanti, Madagascar Foundation, Total Energies. And in the end, Peter, I'm glad there are no Lamborghinis around here. We have a wonderful partnership with BMW. So when you see us driving BMWs, it's not slush funds. We get it from these people at BMW. So we were able to deal with these people with confidence. But I want to say that's only half of the story, the good part of the story. We also stand at almost $25 million that we still require to finish the work that we are doing. That's halfway through. So, Duncan. Having survived the hostile takeovers and got involved in mergers and acquisitions, we once again shall count on you to lead this charge so that we can finish the second half of what we have started. It is correct, Sister Ria, to make the comments the way you did. Our foundation bears the name of President Mbeki. That's quarter of the truth. The actual progenitor of this institution is Mrs. Mbeki. Having worked most of her life in women's development, she has greatly influenced the feminist orientation of our foundation through her thoughts, through her teachings, and even of the material support. After all, this is her work that we are carrying. This is the gift that she has packaged for this continent that we are preparing. Thanks, Nanama and the team at Bigen. We know that we have overworked you guys without complaining. You have for many, many months worked without pay. And you have never made yourself a nuisance, knowing that at some stage when we are able to raise what is required, we will be able to pay you. You have infused this sense of commitment to all other professionals we work with, a genuine spirit of labor, of love. Dr. Mpambotata, thanks for traveling all the way from Maseru to check if we are on course. And thanks for the reassurance that you will forever support us. And we thank you for your counsel and ongoing guidance. I want to say, I'm glad, Mayor, that you were able to be here today, because I don't want to thank you just for your presence today. Lucanio was right. There are a number of bureaucratic nuisance that you get in government. And when you ask people one by one, they also don't know why they are giving you all of these difficulties. But when we called on you and we said everybody must come in one room, let's design a project plan and make sure that our professionals are not given difficulties, you answered that call. And I must tell you, Mayor, that multidisciplinary team is still working with us. There's a small issue that we need to sort out, Mayor. it's we're going to rebuild the energy center. And the energy center belongs to this whole area. But we want to go 50-50. We don't want to impose that entire responsibility to the council, but we are an NGO. It will be very difficult to take that whole responsibility completely. And as you were saying about Mbuyiseni, this plot next door has been empty for a year and a half. At some stage, we got an account of 600,000 for water on an empty plot. But because we've got this type of a working relationship, we've been able to sort out that. So whatever we're trying to do in the multidisciplinary team, in terms of how quickly we can solve the water problems, let's create the models to make sure that those work for the entire city. And I think it can. It is also, Funsumpumlwana, a time for confessions. Dr. Brigalia Bam is our living ancestor, as she refers to herself all the time like that. We are in so much trouble at the foundation that every time she gives us an instruction, and that instruction is always given with love, kindness, and care. But we need to make sure that we act, and act urgently. And how this event today has been organized, it was conceptualized by Dr. Bam and said, let's organize this event the way we have organized it. And we had to do it as quickly as possible because it comes from an ancestor. But we also sincerely thank you, Rabbi and Mfundisi Mpumlwana, really for reminding us that we can do and be very busy here and be busy with a no thing, because without God you can do no thing. So the fact that you have invited God to this space, it will make it possible for those living souls to be able to execute this work. We also thank the Gogos that came here and reminded that there were those that came before us, and that their expectation is that we shall not dishonor the cause of freedom, and that this responsibility is also a responsibility to future generations. I want to thank the TMF team and the organizers of this event, led by Pindis, Pam, and Lupi. And guys, I really am inspired by your never die attitude. Having returned from Tanzania, put together the Africa Peace and Security Dialogue. Now this, whilst we are preparing for the Cape Town conversation, it's an amazing feat from a team like the team you are. I think in a country and in a continent that is not at ease, this type of attitude is important. There is much that is of concern in our country. Economy not growing, a sense of despondency and hopelessness deepening, high levels of insecurity, masses of our people living between suicide and insanity because of extreme poverty, failing public institutions, and worship of money in the guise of corporate greed. There has to be people that must continue to do work that inspires hope. And we would like to galvanize and organize as many of the people to do this work of hope. This is the point that was confirmed to me and Dr. Serote by Mr. Commissioner Tim Williams, who said to us, SG, in tears, I'm glad you are doing what you are doing. Because if you do this, whatever we have done in the ANC will never disappear. You are doing what you are doing so that continuously the idea of oneness of Africa is preserved and promoted. And I think that's the message that we got. In the end, Kofi, my brother, thanks a lot. We have gone through a number of difficulties, and some of them self-inflicted, but we are still here. Thank you to each and every one of you for supporting the foundation. And this act of your attendance today make our burden lighter and our long journey to an Africa that is prosperous, at peace with itself, and the world more tolerable. Let's make these bracelets jingle.
Thank you very much, CEO. I have nothing further to add there. Thank you very much, CEO.